Imagine turning 80 years old. Not, with family around celebrating, but inside a jail cell.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened on June 19th, 2025. To a woman who, for millions, is still just this incredibly powerful symbol of hope.
It's a really stark image, isn't it? And it makes you wonder how someone can remain such a beacon, even when they're completely cut off.
That's the core of it. Her whole life has been so deeply tangled up with Myanmar's fate.
Absolutely. So today we're doing a deep dive into the remarkable and often really heart-wrenching story of Aung San Suu Kyi, Nobel Peace Prize winner from Myanmar.
She was the face of the country's democratic dreams for so long.
And now, this milestone birthday, her 80th, she's serving a 27-year sentence?
27 years. And the charges, they sound almost unbelievable. Corruption, supposedly illegally owning walkie-talkies.
Right. It really stretches the imagination. It feels, well, like you said, less about actual crimes.
And more about just silencing a voice that still carries so much weight.
Yeah.
It really highlights how authoritarian regimes operate, Power and dissent.
Exactly. And that's our mission today. We've really dug into everything we could find about her journey. It's quite something.
From that unexpected rise to leadership right up to her current isolation.
We want to try and unpack why her story still resonates so strongly, even now, while she's hidden away.
Exploring that resilience, the rebellion, and, the very complex legacy she has.
So buckle up, because it's a profound journey through a nation's fight for freedom, a really tumultuous one.
Where do we start? Her beginnings weren't typical for an activist figure.
Not at all. Let's call this part the unlikely revolutionary. Because she wasn't born into activism, not really.
Okay.
Think about it. She's the daughter of Myanmar's independence hero Aung San. But she spent so much of her youth abroad.
Right, studying in places like Delhi, Oxford. She even worked at the UN for a time.
She was, living a fairly academic life in England. Miles away, seemingly, from the political chaos back home.
But fate, as it often does, had other ideas. That return in 1988.
It wasn't political, was it? She went back to Yangon just to care for her mother, who was very ill.
That's right, but she landed right in the middle of a nationwide protest. The country was in chaos, rising up against military rule.
So what do? Your homeland's practically on fire with demands for change.
For her, the path became clear pretty quickly, it seems. She didn't just observe.
No, she stepped up, she led, didn't just sort of test the waters of the democracy movement.
She dove in head first, leading these huge anti-military protests, captivating people.
And, well, inevitably, infuriating the generals who held all the power.
The military's reaction was swift and brutal.
That's when the house arrest started. 15 years, on and off, mostly trapped in her family's lakeside home in Yangon.
15 years. It's almost impossible to comprehend, being confined to your own house for that long.
With soldiers outside, no internet, basically cut off. Yet somehow, from behind those walls,
she became this massive global symbol of defiance. It's incredible.
Remember those stories? Delivering speeches over her garden wall to crowds hanging on every word.
Amazing images. And we know they offered her a way out, didn't they? Exile.
A one-way ticket. But she refused, famously refused.
Which was such a powerful statement. And that refusal, that determination, it earned her the 1991 Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, it cemented her status as this international icon of peaceful resistance.
And that stand really set the stage for what came next, that period that felt like maybe real change was possible.
A glimmer of democracy, you could call it. After her final release in 2010, things moved fast.
Her party, the National League for Democracy, the NLD.
They won a massive landslide victory in the 2015 elections. Huge mandate.
And for about a decade, Myanmar did experience this fragile democracy.
She became the de facto leader. Couldn't be president because of military rules, but she was clearly in charge.
It felt like such a beacon of hope, didn't it? Especially after decades of military control.
It really did. But as we know, that hope was fragile, those power structures.
They don't give up easily. February 2021, the military just snatched power back.
Like flipping a switch.
Yeah.
The coup happened, and she was locked up again. That democratic opening slammed shut.
And then came that, as you called it, laundry list of accusations.
Everything from serious corruption charges to, yes, those walkie-talkies again. It's almost absurd.
Leading to the current 27-year sentence, even after they announced some partial pardons back in 2023.
It makes you seriously question the motive behind such a long sentence for someone who's now 80.
Absolutely. And since that coup, she's basically vanished. held somewhere in Naypyidaw, the capital, completely out of public view.
It's clearly a strategy, right? To make her irrelevant, make people forget.
But as her 80th birthday showed, that strategy isn't quite working the way they might have planned.
No. That day, June 19th, 2025, it was anything but festive for her.
Just the cold reality of solitary confinement. Her son, Kim Aris, based in the UK, he put it quite movingly.
It's hard to celebrate, didn't he? That they've just learned to endure.
Yeah. And Aris, he's 47 now. He's doing what he can to keep her name, her spirit out there.
That run, he did 80 kilometers over 8 days to mark her 80 years.
And collecting video messages from people all over the world, aiming for a Guinness World Record.
Over 80,000 messages. We heard it had reached something like 53,000 by June.
An incredible outpouring of support. But the really heartbreaking part
Is that she won't see any of them. The communication blackout is almost total.
her son mentioned he's only heard from her once in 2 years, just a single letter.
Unbelievable. Just one letter. And yet, even with formal celebrations banned by the junta.
People inside Myanmar are still finding ways, in Mandalay, for instance.
Right, those brave protesters scattering pamphlets. Freedom from fear, happy birthday.
And that shaky video someone took, holding up her picture, asking, "Do you still remember this great person?"
It shows she hasn't been forgotten. Not at all.
But amidst this, there are these really serious worries about her health.
Her son's expressed deep concerns. Untreated issues he fears. Heart problems, bone issues.
Even gum disease so bad she apparently struggles to eat sometimes.
Reports came out back in September 2023 about swelling gums, feeling lightheaded, vomiting.
And requests for an outside doctor were denied, consistently.
Yet the military, in March 2025, just casually says, oh, she's in good health, claims she gets routine checkups.
Those two narratives are just impossible to square, aren't they?
Completely. The lack of transparency itself feels like part of the strategy.
But then we saw those details from leaked prison logs reported around June 18th.
Yeah, painting a pretty grim picture of her daily routine, waking at 4:30 a.m.
Meditating for over an hour, walking in circles in her confinement for exercise.
And the meals described, incredibly sparse. 2 spoonfuls of rice, a little chicken, maybe some dragon fruit for lunch.
Breakfast, maybe just 2 half-fried eggs. Dinner, often just soup and bread.
Reading junta-controlled newspapers, English and French novels, but very little real connection to the outside world.
But that detail about refusing air conditioning because other inmates didn't have it.
That really stands out, doesn't it? Even there, that sense of solidarity, of fairness.
It speaks volumes about her character, even in those circumstances.
It really does. Now, we have to touch on something difficult. A part of her story that, well, significantly tarnished her international image before the coup.
This is crucial. The Rohingya crisis. It marked a major shift in how the world saw her.
During her time as the country's leader, essentially,
Okay.
the military launched this incredibly brutal crackdown on the Rohingya Muslim minority.
Forcing hundreds of thousands to flee for their lives, mostly into neighboring Bangladesh. A horrific situation.
And her response, or lack thereof, and sometimes even her defense of the military's actions.
Claiming journalists investigating the massacres were traitors. That stunned so many former supporters.
Absolutely. Awards she'd received were rescinded. Allies who'd championed her for years turned away. It was a dramatic fall from grace internationally.
And it sparked this huge debate. Was she powerless, caught between the military's dominance and trying to maintain some fragile democratic space?
That's the argument some make, that she was in an impossible position, a rock in a hard place.
Others argue quite strongly that her silence, or her active defense of the military, amounted to complicity. A moral failure.
It's undeniably a stain on her legacy that many outside Myanmar struggle with.
Yet it's fascinating, isn't it? Inside Myanmar, among the majority Buddhist population, her status as a hero seems largely undiminished.
It's a stark reminder that heroes are often complex, and that local perspectives, especially under such intense political dynamics, can differ hugely from international ones.
So looking at the bigger picture now, Myanmar is just in turmoil.
Deep turmoil. The military keeps promising elections, maybe late 2025 or early 2026.
But critics are almost universally calling it a sham, a way for the generals to legitimize their rule through proxy parties.
Especially since they've banned dozens of political parties, including her NLD.
And that census they did for voter lists, it only covered about 145 out of 330 townships. How can that lead to a fair election?
It can't. And meanwhile, the country's locked in this brutal civil war.
against resistance fighters, many of whom were NLD supporters, who now feel like armed struggle is the only option left.
It's just a desperate situation. Add to that the natural disasters, like that huge earthquake in 2025.
Over 3,700 people killed. Naypyidaw, where she's held, was hit hard, though apparently she was unharmed.
And the humanitarian crisis is just staggering, the UN reported back in January.
Nearly half the population is living below the poverty line. Essential services are collapsing. The economy's in free fall.
And the military's tactics against the opposition. These scorched earth campaigns.
Destroying villages, displacing people. Over 3.5 million people internally displaced now. It's a catastrophe.
And she, locked away, still somehow symbolizes what Myanmar could have been, the alternative to this disaster.
But even in all this darkness, there's still this glimmer of enduring hope tied to her. Her spirit seems unbroken.
Her son predicts, interestingly, that if she were released, she probably wouldn't jump back into frontline politics.
Which, honestly, at 80, after everything she's been through, seems like a wise move. Decades dodging junta traps takes a toll.
But her influence, it absolutely persists.
Yeah,
That Suu 80 Birthday Wishes campaign is proof.
And the vigils in places like Bangkok, events planned by Myanmar communities globally.
Even that odd suggestion from a pro-junta monk hinting she should cooperate with the military for peace.
Which the junta immediately shot down, denying any talks were happening.
Tells you they're still nervous about her influence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even from solitary confinement.
It's quite remarkable how one person, silenced and imprisoned, can still represent so much resistance and hope.
So her story, Aung San Suu Kyi's story, it's really not just about one woman, is it?
No, it's about a whole country's relentless, painful struggle for freedom against a military that seems to see democracy as, well, a threat.
Her 80th birthday in jail is just such a stark reminder of the immense cost that courage can demand.
They can lock her away physically, but they can't seem to extinguish the hope she embodies for millions.
And as Myanmar stands at this precipice, sham elections may be coming, civil war raging, her fate feels like a barometer for the whole nation's future.
It really forces us to ask, what does her story, what does the ongoing struggle in Myanmar teach all of us about that long, hard fight for democracy and human rights everywhere?
And maybe, how do we reconcile the legacy of a leader who holds so much symbolic hope while also grappling with the difficult, complex realities and choices of her time in power? It's definitely something to think about.